Let's see. Let's see how this is gonna go. Doing a experimentary live stream where you guys can ask me anything, and if nobody's interested in asking me anything, which is kind of an arrogant assumption, why would anybody want to ask you any questions anyway? Um, then I'll just jump off and go about my merry way. Maybe play some Fortnite or other meaningless thing. But I figured, you know what? Let's talk to the crew. So, lay it on me, ladies and gents. If you've got questions or if there's a topic you want to talk about, then let's do it. And if we get a strident enough disagreement, hell, I might even bring some folks on. So I had a good little discussion in the comment section with you know, one of the things that was really fascinating to me after 9/11, I was certain as an American that everybody just loved us, you know, because I loved America, obviously, as an American, and so I was just like, oh, everybody loves America. Little did I know that a lot of people did not love America, and of course, Bush's explanation was that it was because people were jealous of us, of our freedom. So anyway, it was a pretty fun jousting session with this individual because you could tell he really hates Americans. So that was interesting. Mayonnaise is amazing. Total lie. Would you ever consider debuting a new hip hop artist from Canada? Yes, I would consider it for sure. If I gotta tell you though, if it's a pro-fascist rap, then no. But I doubt very highly it will be a pro-fascist rap. So yes, Black Satan in the house. Watch Majid Nawaz on Joe Rogan when you get time. Yeah, I just saw a little clip from him. Nothing, Adam. You didn't jump in late. You literally jumped in 2 minutes and 30 seconds in. So it looks like we're in good shape. I'm just doing a little experimental Ask Me Anything live stream. So people have questions, comments, concerns, disagreements, agreements, whatever. That's the purpose of this discussion. We're just out here chilling. You know what I'm saying? It's just a chill time. AJ Mason in the house, Blair in the house, Mike P in the house, all that jag. What's your thoughts re Russia and Ukraine? My thoughts are, I saw an article that basically said Mexico is our Ukraine. My thoughts are that obviously I don't believe the Russians should do that, and I stand in solidarity with the Ukrainians. My stance is also that Americans have no room to condemn. I'll say it this way: condemn in a critical manner what the Russians are doing and really have done for the last decade. We have no moral room to do so. So, not only because of our past, but because of our present. So, hopefully, there you go. Hey Vin, did the stream of Hail Satan ever come back? No, because we pasted that stream out live, and it rightly, most of the time when we get a copyright strike, I'm always mad about it, but this one, we got an actual copyright strike because we literally played the movie from start to finish, and we would stop, and it was like a movie reaction video, and I mean, it's, you know, so a copyright strike is when, you know, we get, all our videos get a copyright claim, and that's just them taking the money. Right? Which is why we set up the Patreon thing. But a copyright strike is when YouTube removes the video and then gives you one warning and says, if this happens 2 more times, we're deleting your entire channel. And they won't let you live stream for a week and all that. So the Hail Satan movie got got pulled down forever. So, that's that. What's your favorite nonfiction book? Probably The Message of the Pentateuch by this guy named John Sailhammer. Really, really good book. Very complex in my opinion. Are you reading comments from 2 different platforms? I'm reading comments from 5: Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and 2 YouTube channels. So 5. Rules for thee and not for me made at the Super Bowl. I think you're talking about the mask stuff. I think everybody's pretty much over it now, especially considering there's only like 2 versions of masks that are really, really effective. I was listening to Jimmy DORE yesterday. And I'm not one of these people that was it. I mean, you guys know me. I was pretty compliant with everything that the scientists were saying at the time. And I have no ill feelings toward the fact that the science has changed, because we were confronted with something and these guys were doing science and giving us the best recommendations they could do in real time. So that's how I feel about it. Just popped in to say hi. I can't stay. Good seeing you. Good seeing you. How does it make you feel when you get recognized in public? I don't want to say weird, because I don't want people to be like, oh, he thinks I'm weird, and not come up to us or something like that, or feel weird if they ever came up to us. It's just, I feel like myself, like I haven't changed since I started the channel. You know what I'm saying? So for people to be like, oh my God, it's you, and sometimes freak out is a weird feeling. But at the same time, the people in our community are, I've had groups of people in my life, and the people in our community are some of my favorite people in the world. So being able to run into them and talk to them is pretty cool. The strangest one, though, was we were at a show. We were at a rock show, and we were kind of like in a backstage situation. And the band was like literally 5 feet away. We were over here, and people kept talking to us, and I'm like, yo, the band's right there. Like, the singer of the band is right there. That was kind of weird, like, but, it's all good. It's all good. Do you have any opinion on Sam Shamoun? I love Sam Shamoun as far as apologetics. I think, in my opinion, aside from Jay Smith, he's probably the most effective apologist when it comes to Christian and Muslim dialogue. Obviously, I do not like his acerbic ad hominem. There is a video of me that's in on his channel, and I'm not going to mention what he calls the guy. So I appreciate Sam Shamoun a lot as far as what he's done, but I just don't understand why we have to go with the ad hominem and the insults. Maybe because he's Assyrian, there's a different culture, but I don't think that's very Christ-like, and so I think that's one of those, maybe like an Achilles heel. But I don't really know what's going on in the world of Islamic apologetics right now. There's just a lot of WWE one-upsmanship type of thing that I don't know. But obviously Sam Shamoun is he's brilliant. He's objectively a brilliant man. Can we turn down the music? Tasco's always so accommodating. There you go. Let's see. Hey fellas, glad I could catch an Insomni stream, and I'm late. You're not late. This is really not an Insomni stream. It's only 9:30. So yeah. Thoughts on the new Slipknot music? It's decent. It's decent. Vin, Armed Madhouse by Greg Palast is a perfect takedown of the Elite. Oh, okay. I'd like to check that out. Hey, Vid, if you have an audio interface or whatever, check out Neutral DSP. That's right as fuck. Say that in different words. That was the Cradle of Filth show. No, it wasn't the Cradle of Filth show. Let's see. In Canada, people's bank accounts are already getting seized by the government. My friend is one of them, and my sister and brother's bank accounts may be seized. Me and my family are debating on what to do. Yeah, Denny. I just think that that's insane. It's absolutely insane to me what's happening over there in Canada. Yeah, I saw the video where the lady the lady with the walker got trampled by the horses, or horse or whatever, and it just it was like a flashback of when the jackbooted Stasi individuals in America. Yarosullah, what's going on, huh? When the jackbooted Stasi freaks in America knocked that 70-year-old guy down and cracked his skull open and just kept walking like it was nothing. I just think there's something that happens in the minds of human beings, man, when they realize that they've got absolute power and there's going to be no accountability. And I'm always going to be against that. I probably am against the protesters as far as their political ideology, like in the meta sphere. Like I said, I'm a big... We should comply with as much of the science and as the government says in regard to the pandemic. I got vaccinated. We didn't need a mandate to get vaccinated. And we were homeschooled. We were homeschoolers before all this happened. And we were work from homers before all this happened. So we had no vested interest in doing it, but we did it anyway. So, so that's where we are. I've canceled trips and all that because of COVID precautions. So I'm probably ideologically on the opposite side of these protesters, but holy shit. When you have the government saying, we're going to go take money away from you, we're going to dig into your bank account, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're going to take all your money. People like that. And again, maybe some of this is, Americans start with different presuppositions, Canadians start with... But, man, I remember the USA Patriot Act, and I remember, what I thought at the time were crazy leftists who were against the Patriot Act. And now we see, now that I've gotten older, anytime the government does any sort of power grab, I'm automatically against it. And this, to me, is insane. It's absolutely insane. Unjustifiable. There's no way to even justify it in my mind. It's just madness. But shout out to the shout out to all the Canadians out there, because this isn't right. It's because they effectively challenge the centers of power. Yeah, Spherical Earther. I like that name, Spherical Earther. I like the way you said that. Not that they challenged it, because BLM challenged it in 2020 and didn't do a very good job, but that they effectively challenged it. And I think every day that this continues, Trudeau looks worse and worse. I mean, again, I'm hearing 90% of Canadians this, 60% of Canadians that, but outside of the people that hate these truckers in Canada, it's just looking really bad, man. It's looking really, really bad. And, hey. And you know what else is interesting? Because I was in a little mini debate in the comments section about this whole thing. There's a Canadian civil liberties. Because one of the guys was telling me, like, oh, you're you dumb American. He basically said, you stupid Americans, you moronic Americans, yada yada yada. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association, so the CCLA, filed an application for judicial review in federal court requesting an order quashing the emergency proclamation. And it's an official federal... They filed it in federal court on 18 February to try to get this thing repealed. So all my friends who were saying, oh, you dumb Americans, blah, 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 you don't know what's going on. Okay, is the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, are they dumb Americans too? I mean, what they said in their brief was, this is demonstrably unjustifiable as the terminology that they used. So, you know, I understand. I mean, there seems to be a lot of hostility toward these truckers, and the fact that they're getting support from America. There seems to be a lot of hostility here. But I mean, I think I agree with them. I think that when they say order that the emergency regulations are inconsistent with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, again, I don't know, that's probably the Canadian version of the Constitution, such inconsistency cannot be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. And you guys can read it. I mean, once I get done holding the baby, I'll post it. I'll post it here for you guys to check it. But I mean, are we gonna say that the Canadian Civil Liberties Union they're just dumb Americans too? I don't know, man. I don't know. So if that truly happened to members of your family, that's a problem. That's a serious problem. Talk to me as a Canadian in Ottawa. I want to know what I missed. Well, Julian, would you like to jump on and have a discussion? Since you're a Canadian in Ottawa, I'd like to hear your perspective. I'm assuming that you're, and this is just an assumption, that you're in the majority who want the truckers to go home and don't support them. But I am curious as to what your opinion is on Trudeau's solution to that problem, because to me it's completely draconian and insanely fascist. They ain't truckers, they're a bunch of angry Albertans. Well, Adam, I mean, I think when you characterize them that way, it doesn't do your cause any good, because all of us have seen the videos of these people frolicking in the snow and dancing around and talking about peace and love, and the Sikh guy out there cooking for people and sharing food, and I mean, we've all seen the videos. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Jimmy DORE, but he's published these videos, man, of these people kind of harmoniously hanging out with each other and cooking food for each other, and the Sikh guy talking about his religion, how his religion is talking about, you know, love your neighbor type of thing, and cooking for everybody, no strings attached. So you're saying they're a bunch of angry Albertans. I don't know. I think you know, it's probably best to stay away from generalizations, especially in the social media age, because somebody can always post a video or something that undoes that. You see what I'm saying? Ephraim Al-Kaabi, what's up, buddy? Or Ibrahim Al-Kaabi, what's up, buddy? Assalamu alaikum. Justin Trudeau has actively tried to have Rebel News banned from his events, despite them having the right of the press. I don't know enough. I don't know what Rebel News is. What's Rebel News? One person waves a swastika, therefore they're all Nazis. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, we've got to mature past symbolism triggering us to the point where we can't understand what's being done. If 1 or 2 or 15 Nazi flags are present at a protest, and that then can undo the overarching message of the protest, which has nothing to do with Nazism, nationalism, socialism, or any other type of ism. They're 2 very specific demands. Stop the mandates, we want bodily autonomy, and stop the vaccine passports. Those are their 2 explicit demands. That's what their movement is about. If a bunch of weirdos with Nazi flags show up, that should not undo the protest. Secondly, think this through a little bit more cynically. If I was the government and I wanted to undo any protest I wanted, all I had to do is send somebody down there to have them wave around a little Nazi flag, and then that's all of a sudden going to undo the protest. Everybody should go home and they shouldn't be listened to anymore. We've got to mature past that. We've got to mature past being manipulated that way. So that's how I feel about that. Jimmy Dore isn't a reliable source. Okay, Adam. It's not so much that Jimmy Dore is a source. What I'm saying is he's playing the videos. I mean, these are extended clips. These are not like 5-second little clips. I mean, these are extended clips of people, you know, partying and having a good time. It just seems to me that you just have a bias against these people, and you're willing to believe whatever horrible thing you're told about them. But then when there's empirical evidence on the other side, you go, well, it's not a really good, you know. I mean, hey, do you? Vin, you got my email regarding the Nazi flag story. Yes, I did get the email regarding your Nazi flag story. Yes. And I've also seen videos of other people saying similar things as well, Zombie Holly. Just learning from your stream and, well, mashallah tabaraka, good. I'm glad, and I hope you contribute, inshallah. If you hear the actual account of the Nazi flag story, it was more likely agent provocateurs. These groups are filled with Jewish, French, and Canadians, and Sikhs. Agreed. And you know, look, as a black person who is a lover of my people, I know all about agent provocateurs. All you got to do is Google COINTELPRO, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. This was a common tactic used by the government during the Civil Rights Movement. You had nonviolent protests. Dr. King was spearheading nonviolent protests. Malcolm was as well, with the small caveat, the small American caveat, by the way, which was, look, if we're not going to be those people that you spray and sick dogs on. If you guys go after us, we're going after you. But other than that, we're going to be peaceful. And so what would happen is, in order to belie Dr. King's call for peaceful protest, the FBI deployed agent provocateurs, people that were part of the movement, to break stuff, do all types of craziness, do violence, and then the city would erupt, and then that would give the cops the justification for doing what they did, and then you would have these satirical articles posted about, like, the whole city was on fire, and then they would say peaceful protest with Dr. King. Does that sound familiar? And so during the BLM uprising, whatever you want to call it, I've got videos I could show you. It didn't really do much to my friends on the right, where you had black people telling white people, stop doing this, stop destroying this building, they're going to blame us for it. Okay? So the agent provocateur is a common tactic used by fascist governments in democratic contexts to justify taking these radical measures. We've got police cracking skulls. You've got police. And Deathman showed me the video yesterday where the old lady gets trampled over by these horses. And in any other situation, everybody would be unified in saying that that was horrible. But because there was a Nazi flag somewhere, now all of a sudden it's justified, which is one of the reasons why I never supported this whole punch a Nazi thing. Because once you get away from dialogue, and discussion, then you can justify any sort of behavior as long as you tag the title Nazi on. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we've got to grow past getting triggered by symbolism, and we have to look very closely at what is the person doing. And that's a lesson, unfortunately, that we've learned too late with the Biden administration. There was all this symbolism about how Trump was a Nazi and he was this and that, and kids in cages, and what about black people? And then we saw that the kids are in worse situations now that Biden's in office. And he's done nothing for black folks, according to black folks in the Washington Post. But everybody fell victim to this symbolism of Trump. We made Trump the symbol of the Antichrist and all the rest of this nonsense. And now what's happened is that the the neoliberals have essentially handed the Republicans, almost certainly handed the Republicans absolute power in the midterms coming up. And if Biden refuses to step down and not run, they'll almost certainly guarantee the Republicans a supermajority in 2024. So, do what you will with that, dear listener. Dude, as a Jew, I would never silence a Nazi. If someone has been indoctrinated into that belief from an early age, the best we could do is engage, discuss, and educate. I agree, Julian. I agree. Please react to Angel of Death by Slayer. I want to say, Devin, that we already have, but we've done 3,000 videos, so it's hard for people to, mine through it. So what we're going to do periodically is we're going to be posting, we're going to be recycling the older videos so you guys can see that. Reese says, this is a pure example of how ideological subversion has worked. Vanguard and BlackRock are laughing their heads off. I agree. Regarding Trudeau and the truckers, one can totally disagree with the truckers, but think Trudeau is overstepping. Two wrongs don't make a right. Yeah, Wade, and that's probably where I am. James said, billionaires on both sides do that all the time too, paying agent provocateurs, false actors to infiltrate these movements with their own agendas, whether it's Nazi flags, Marxist, or anarchistic. I agree. I agree with that completely. Are you going to react to more Five-Finger Death Punch? Yes, I am. Do a reflection. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that guy. We do have a lot of blocked songs from streams that haven't been posted, and I've been working double time behind the scenes to get a lot of those released. I just did 68 disputes according to YouTube about an hour ago. So if I get half of those done, we're in good shape. Later, Ranter Matt. Hey Vin, did you ever get a chance to look at that video where China sends robots in India to attack civilians? No, I did not see that one. Holy smokes. All the truckers want us to end the mandate, but Trudeau refuses to meet them. Instead, he insults. That's the other thing about, isn't Trudeau supposed to be like a, hey man, give peace a chance, progressive-minded type guy, let's talk to each other. That's one of the things that's kind of shocking to me about this whole thing. And granted, I'm very, very ignorant about Canadian politics. But I thought, aside from the blackface stuff, which I know I'm just supposed to overlook, I'm supposed to freak out over 2 alleged Nazi flags. I'm supposed to freak out about that, but I'm supposed to overlook the guy that was in blackface on multiple occasions. One time when he was in a position of authority at college in his 20s. I'm supposed to overlook that, but I'm supposed to freak out about these Nazis. I'll make a deal. I will say the truckers need to be shut down for the Nazi flags if Trudeau will step down for his blackface. Can we be consistent? Since we're gonna freak out over symbolism, and we're gonna take bad symbolism to automatically equate to bad person, therefore that person shouldn't be listened to. So let's just get rid of Trudeau and his entire cabinet and everybody who supported him, because that must mean everybody who supports him is racist because he did the blackface thing, right? And then we can talk about the truckers after that. Or should we say, well, the guy's got other thought processes too that might be pertinent that have nothing to do with whether or not how he feels about black people. Hey Vid, we need more Avenged Sevenfold. There's a new album coming out. It'll be a marathon time. You know what, Tim? I'm not completely against that. I am not completely against that. Trudeau is sitting where they're triple vaxxed with COVID talking about mandates. I mean, hey, shout out to Trudeau. Shout out to Trudeau. The truckers are leaving, but the people on foot are staying. Okay, so it looks like the truckers they're getting out of Dodge. Well, it looks like the truckers got what they wanted, right? No one says a vaccine will prevent literally every death, but the vaccinated are considerably less likely to die. That's just a scientific fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. I mean, not even McCullough or Malone denied that about the vaccine. You're much more, aside from dying, you're much less likely to be hospitalized. Especially during the Delta variant days. You're much less likely to be hospitalized if you at least have the base vaccination. That's just a fact. Nobody's denying that. Jimmy's not denying that. Malone's not denying that. So, I agree with you there. Vin, you should do one stream night of super chat requests, 4 songs per poll, etc. I'm not necessarily against that. I am not necessarily against that. BC in the house. Trudeau, blackface? I thought Trudeau got locked up trying to meet Nelson Mandela or some shit. Or was that a different race? Yeah, that was Joe Biden. That was Joe Biden, who the white neoliberals were telling me that I needed to vote for because Trump was a racist. You're getting them all confused. Here's the Orange Duke. No one denies because you will lose your channel if you deny it. That's not true, Orange Duke. Jimmy Dore, there's lots of channels out there that say that the vaccination won't cost you anything. Won't help you at all, and they're still around. You might get demonetized, but this channel gets demonetized all the time anyway, so I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't really matter. The protest wasn't originally a right-wing shutdown at first until people like Tamara Leak and Pat King started showing up with convoys from Alberta and Saskatchewan. I mean, that's irrelevant to me. The only thing that's relevant to me is what the stated cause of the protesters are and what their actions are to the populace of since then. Especially in light of the fact that Mr. Trudeau again has taken these fascistic draconian measures against ordinary citizens. At my age and health status, I have less than 1% risk of dying of COVID, so why should I take a treatment with unknown risks that reduce an amount not statistically significant? I can't argue with you, sis. I can't argue with you. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I've said from the beginning I'm against mandates of all forms. And I always said that even though we were compliant with recommendations, I always said that we need elements in our society, even for mask mandates. We need elements in our society that would push back on the government and make it really uncomfortable for them to do so. So, at a legal level, I supported people who were pushing back. On a personal level, people who were saying, I'm going to cough all over everybody in Walmart and I don't care. I was completely against that. But that's, your response is a very reasoned response with the data and the facts that we have and your own understanding of your body. The body that you occupy. You're making a well-reasoned decision, and I don't see how any government can try to justify um, trying to force you in light of what you just said. So, I agree. Ibrahim Al-Kaabi, always wanted to hear your opinion about Islam, and definitely as a Muslim would love to hear a true intellectual man's take on it. Let me think about that. Vin, would you debate vegan gains on veganism? I don't know. I don't know if I would debate that because I probably agree with a lot of tenets of veganism. Vin, when is your guys' song coming out? I've been like a weird, yeah. And the other thing too is I'm 85% done with another song that we're doing as well. And then there's another song. I mean, yeah. Hey Franz, I heard Vin has determined Odin and Thor work for and belong to Jesus. Oh yeah, that's what the Bible says. I didn't come up with that idea, but the Bible says that. But yeah, Franz, that'd be good for you to know. Sadie wants you to know that, so I put it on the screen thing there. I'm enjoying your common sense conversation. Well, I'm enjoying your enjoyment of it, my brother or sister. Kevin, what do you say to people who think the vax is or is leading to the mark of the beast? Okay, one of the things that I have to get better at as a person is seeing things from the other perspective of people that I vehemently disagree with. So let me do it this way. I believe that when the Bible's talking about the mark of the beast, it's talking about emperor worship in the first century. Because, and I also believe that the right hand and forehead imagery is a sort of inversion of what you see in Deuteronomy, where it says, you know, place the law on your hand and put it on your forehead, yada yada yada. So I don't believe that there's any mark of the beast in the future that's going to happen. Now, there are people that believe that the church is going to, at one point in time, disappear. God's going to take up the church and basically leave the world to the grips of a man named the Antichrist. And that the Antichrist will force everybody to take a mark on their right hand and forehead. Now, when we were growing up, it was the UPC code. It was like a little... I mean, originally in the 60s, it was a tattoo. It was literally a tattoo of 3 6s on your right hand or forehead. Then it became the UPC code. Then it became a chip. If a person were to say, this random disease came out of nowhere, and then we randomly got this vaccine that the government randomly is mandating you to receive and put on or in your body. So, if I still believed in that setup about the Antichrist and the 7-year tribulation and all that, I would not say the vaccine mandate itself is the mark of the beast. But what I would say would be, this is kind of a dry run, or getting people psychologically prepared to submit to government demands of putting something on or into your body to participate in society. And so from that perspective, I definitely see how a person could say, this is a dry run or a psychological setup for the mark of the beast. So I'll leave it at that. Well, Sadie, you can think it's nonsense. Or you could be curious and say, well, why do you think that? Right? Because if you're not omniscient, if you're not claiming to be the Most High, Sadie, then that means there's things that you don't know. So maybe we could have some curiosity. You seem to be really, really hostile, Sadie, and you know, look, I don't know you, but and I mean, honestly, everybody knows me. That's neither here nor there to me. But that kind of emotionalism when it comes to discussing a topic would probably impede your ability to reason clearly. Trudeau belongs in prison. I don't know if I could say that Trudeau belongs in prison. You know, I just... You know, the ego is a hell of a thing, man. Do you think that $89,929 is an excessive amount for 3 days in the hospital? Yes, I do. Medicare for all. Holy shit. Yes, I think it's massively excessive. Yes, 100%. What is your opinion of tacos al pastor? I don't know what tacos al pastor is. There's plenty I don't know. To assume that one's God supersedes another seems like nonsense to me. Well, it would only be nonsense if it weren't true. But one alternative is, yeah, that's nonsense. The other alternative is there is one divine being who is the Most High, who not only supersedes your personal God, but supersedes everybody else's personal God. If I were to say, my dad is a police officer, and another person were to say, yeah, but my dad is a police chief, and so your dad works for my dad, that might be offensive, but it's not nonsensical. It's not illogical. It's not irrational. Now, you might have an emotional aversion to that. That might generate some hostility. Well, my dad is still awesome. Nobody's saying your dad isn't awesome. But as far as the hierarchy goes, no, your dad reports to the police chief. So, I mean, again, I think there's a difference between nonsense and I don't like the implications of what you're saying emotionally. So, that's how I look at that. I think Snoop Dogg is the Most High. That's so blasphemous. Oh my God. Outlaw Torrance says, if you're going to take a mark that requires you to buy, sell, work, or live, period, it's the mark of the beast. The Antichrist only gives you two choices: worship him or die. I'll die. I agree, but I don't think that the current premise of the vaccine is about worshiping the state. The current premise of the vaccine was, we're all going to die collectively if you don't do this. Now, the people in Revelation 13 do not take the mark of the beast and then go on with their day. The people who take the mark of the beast also worship the image of the beast. That's what it says in Revelation. Everybody's focused on the mark, but you take the mark and you worship the image of the beast, and that's what gets you into the lake of fire. So until you have a movement that says you need to take this mark and worship this image, then I don't think it's the mark of the beast. Vin, do you think that you were and Sorry are the only ones that haven't heard the Beatles catalog? I would love to change that. I am very, very ignorant of the Beatles catalog, and to this point, I'm not certain why there's so much hype about them. But I'm open-minded and willing to learn. And if we ever did a Beatles stream, we'd have to find some way, because it's almost guaranteed to get the block treatment from what do you call it? I sent you a YouTube link, Ergun of Islam. It's over an hour long, but thought it was very interesting. Oh, I'll check it out. Anything with Islam is fascinating to me. Vin, what is the origin of your faith? Religious upbringing, seeking out a community, independent curiosity and study? Good question, Rig. I think it's all three. One of these days, I'll have a separate discussion. I had probably the earliest memory of my life was a pretty significant religious experience. Like literally the first memory of my life that I can remember was a very significant religious experience. So that's one layer. Another layer is I was raised in a Christian context, which oddly enough, the main progenitors of the religion in me, were not the nicest people. Let's say it that way. My second earliest memory was those two individuals going at it, and somebody ended up with a compound fracture, like right in front of me at 4 years old. Because of that, and yeah, I'm trying to protect people I grew up with, but certain situations happen, you know, that you can probably guess. By the time I was in high school, I had a failed attempt at apostasy. I was going around saying there was no God. I painted my nails black. I did everything I could to avoid religion, or I denounced religion as best I could for a couple years. But the situation in my family metastasized to the point where I ended up in psych ward for about 6 months. Partially because, you know, I was in a lot of trouble because I was serious about suicide, and also partly because when you ended up there, you also got connected to a social worker. So the social worker and my doctor came together and they said, okay, he can't go back into that environment. So they also held me there because they were working on my state aid to come so I could get my first apartment. No lie. So then anyways, so I'm in the psych ward and we're reviewing my entire life. And it was basically, yeah, your parents are horrible, terrible people, yada, yada, yada. And you're a superhero for not being on, because I didn't do drugs, I didn't drink any of that stuff. And so they were pumping me up with all this self-pity. And I just heard a voice like right here, standing next to me like this, saying, do not listen to them. Don't listen to those people. Your parents, XYZ, I'm going to deal with them directly, but you also have issues. What about this? What about this? What about this? And I just went through my life and decisions that I made aside from my parents, the things that I did aside from, and I wasn't seeking God or anything like that. So I decided not to listen to those people, that I was some horrible charity case and all the rest of it. And I ended up in my apartment and I got better out of the hospital. But then I started looking into, well, why was I raised with this? What did I believe? And so then you start getting into apologetic stuff. How do you know the resurrection happened? Was historical Jesus stuff, that type of thing. I got a friend in the channel yesterday. She's like, okay, so you've looked at Islam, you've looked at Hare Krishna, Buddha, you know, like you got you're getting all the bases covered. I just went into this deep intellectual sort of deep dive, not only to my faith, but just philosophy, ideas, religion in general. And then when that happened, I was newly married in a very, very difficult marriage. No disrespect to her, but she had borderline personality disorder. And so I needed a community. So I guess all of those factor into the history of my faith, actually. All the questions that you asked kind of factor into the history of my faith. So there you go. We need more singing and dancing. In my opinion, the Mark of the Beast will be insanely worse than anything current in our current understanding. Take your imagination where we're going with Neuralink merging with machines, uploaded consciousness for a glimpse. Yeah, there's a lot of... Yeah, I definitely... If I believed in a future Mark of the Beast, I agree. I would say that the vaccine stuff is child's play. So, religion, philosophy, music, political, some sports. What else are you passionate about? Do you paint, write poetry, cook? Sweating in sauna doesn't count. Um, my guitar and I are really developing a very close relationship. And if you listen to any of Don Hoffman's stuff, Don Hoffman, I'm really actually into science a lot right now. Like I'm listening. I don't know if it's to my shame or whatever, but I'm listening to way more science in my free time than anything religious. As a matter of fact, it's almost exclusive. The scientific stuff, especially the studies on consciousness, are a big passion for me right now. It's just massively fascinating to me. Especially watching these scientists grapple with the ramifications of the hard problem of consciousness, for example. But Don Hoffman's conscious agents theory leaves the door open for the idea that my guitar could have some sort of consciousness attached to it, and so can anthropomorphically explain the actual relationship the affection that I have for my guitar. I don't know. Maybe that's all crazy talk. Who knows? But yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of my guitar right now, so I'm very passionate about my guitar. I'm really not that passionate about sports, to be honest with you. I love Tom Brady because of the passion that he has and the drive that he has. And, I was working a job like a couple years ago, surrounded by a bunch of passionate 1%er type A personalities, and I left that job. And so watching Tom reminds me of that. And so I wasn't even really going to watch the Super Bowl because Tom wasn't in it, and he retired. I wasn't even going to watch football, to be honest with you. I did it for my boys because my boys, they're football fans. So I'm not really that passionate about sports, to be honest with you. If I say God is real, you can just say... If I say God is real, you can just say he is, and if I believe you, it still begs the question, who created God? It's circular bullshit that should be avoided for the sake of a person's sanity. Well, you can say who created God, but the entire premise of God is that he's an eternal, uncreated being. We know that the universe began, 13.77 billion years ago. So the universe had a beginning. So everything in the universe must have a beginning, but that doesn't say anything about what's outside of the universe. And I would simply say that that God is a necessary being, and so because of that, by definition, he would have to be eternal. So I don't think you'd have to be driven to insanity by that premise. Yeah, Ian. What's the name of this individual? And does this person address the hard problem of consciousness? Some of this is, and as Bernardo Kastrup says, there is no hard problem of consciousness. The only reason it's a problem is for materialist physicalists. So if you assume materialism or you assume physicalism, which cannot be proven, it's just a presupposition. Then you have a hard problem. But if you don't assume materialism and physicalism, there is no problem. But yeah, I mean, if this guy's purporting to solve the hard problem of consciousness from a physicalist standpoint, I'd love to see it. I'll tell you that if he really did do that, if it's not just like speculation. Hopefully we're back. Hopefully we're back and you can hear us. You're in a box. Is that like the echoey sound? What about this one? Sori's mic is usually better than mine. These mics are racist. Racist mics. Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard it, but the tithing thing, I agree with what Homegirl said about tithing. His name is Dr. Mark Solms. Ooh, never heard of him before. It's not philosophical about the heart problem. It's about where it originates in the brain, i.e. how much of your brain could you lose and still be... Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, of course I'll check that out. Yeah, I'll check that out for sure, Ian. You know me. You know how I get down. I don't think there's the Abraham's God with a long white beard and don't need evidence one way or the other. Well, Sagan, it depends on what are your standards of evidence. I was on with a famous atheist one time, and he said, there's no evidence for God. I said, okay, what are your standards of evidence? And his response was, I don't know, but if God was omniscient, he would tell me. So Sagan, tell me, what are your standards of evidence that would convince you that God exists? The Robert Escobar show in the house. Hey, you guys, check out Robert Escobar. He's got a show, podcast, whatever you want to call it. That guy knows his stuff. And you should listen to him instead of just listening to amateurs like me and Sori who really don't know what we're talking about. Favorite band and why? Korn. Korn's my favorite band. Because they're the band... I was looking for DMX at Woodstock. I was in the Bronx, New York, steeped in hip-hop, and I saw about 35 seconds of Got the Life, and I was completely blown away, and I've been a Korn kid ever since. And because of what I do for work, I'm actually pretty good friends with my inspiration for buying a first guitar. So it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy world we live in. Kai in the house. Sheikh your dingus asks, do you believe you have free will? Do you believe God knows everything? If the answer is both, is yes. I'm curious how you reconcile those. If he knows the result, where's the choice? Well, I do believe in free will in the compatibilist sense. I don't believe in free will in the libertarian sense. So that's how to answer that question. God's foreknowledge of everything that happens is not in conflict at all with a compatibilist understanding of the will. I don't even believe that God has free will in the libertarian sense. The scripture says God cannot lie. The scripture says God cannot deny himself. So God doesn't even have libertarian free will. He does have free will in a compatibilist sense, but not a libertarian sense. So that's how to answer that question. I've seen too many people completely lose it in nihilism and living screwed up lives to believe that some people don't just full on need some kind of faith in a higher power to function. I agree with that. I saw Korn and thought they were reggae white kiddos. Well, one of them is like, there's a couple Hispanics in the band. Yeah, the egg video, the universe in an egg. Yes, that is extremely fascinating. Have you ever heard of quantum entanglement theory? It's a theory that proves things can without physical touch, that things can what without physical touch or force. Hey, great old one in the house. Long time no see. I love how Fox News is saying Canada no longer has free will and we are now in a dictatorship. Well, I don't think that a government can steal. I don't think the government can take your will from you. But I do think that what Mr. Trudeau has done this past week are dictatorial actions. It's not the same as saying he's an actual dictator. Went into a fishmonger's the other day with a giant salmon under my arm. I asked the fishmonger if they make fish cakes. He said, I pointed to the salmon and said, thank God it's his birthday today. Okay. Isn't the will to sin a lack of free will, a continual descending into the absence of being able to make your own choices? John chapter 8, Jesus says, he who sins is a slave to sin, which is why I don't believe in libertarian free will, but even that statement can still work in a compatibilist understanding of the will. Trump is a dictator wannabe, right? I don't think Trump had done anything as draconian as what we've seen Mr. Trudeau do. I mean, this guy's going into people's bank accounts and taking their money. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. But I think words have meanings. And I think there's a difference between taking dictatorial actions and being an actual dictator. I think we need to make, and somebody might say, oh, this is semantics, but I think it's different. I'd say he's acting like a dictator, but he's not a dictator. Like, as I said, the Canadian Civil Liberties Union are just filed a federal appeal to literally quash what he's doing, and they've got a day in court where they can confront him, and that doesn't happen in dictatorships. They get taken out to the side and they get put up against the wall. So, I mean, let's not like completely swing way too far here. What is Forrest Gump's AOL password? Forrest 1. That's actually a pretty good one. Quantum entanglement is playing central role in quantum technologies such as quantum cryptography, quantum teleportation, and networks for distributing quantum information. Yeah, I'm really gonna have to dig in it, which is why I'm like really taken up by science right now. The science stuff is just it expands your world, and we're in a situation now where you've got access to brilliant people like Don Hoffman and the rest of these guys. I just got done listening to about 2 hours of what's this dude? Stanford professor. Gary Nolan, I think his name is. Guys, we've got access to some of the most brilliant people on the face of the earth right now for free. Stuff that you'd only be able to get in university. We're really, really lucky people. I think we're the luckiest people in all of human history where we are right now. So, yes. This is just, it's all fun. So I'll be jumping down the quantum entanglement rabbit hole. Then, do you think God is on the spectrum of light? Well, light. No, I don't think he's on the spectrum of light because he created it. If he is on the spectrum of light, it would be because he's entered into his creation. But what God is and where God is kind of a nonsense question, because where and what are realities in this universe, and whatever is outside of this universe is where God is. You get me? So it's kind of a weird. Why Jimmy Dore? I love Jimmy Dore because he's not the most objective individual on the planet. He's extremely emotional, but I've never seen somebody fight so consistently for the little guy. When I came into the understanding of Medicare for All, and how horrific pure capitalism is to people who don't know how to leverage those systems, you kind of vicariously get to be angry through Jimmy Dore. And so because of that, I appreciate him. And he's been right on some pretty interesting... He was right on the, what do you call it? Force the vote. He was ahead of his time with that. He's been right on some of the things, the controversial things he said about the vaccine, which is not... And I like the fact that he's willing to go against the party line because he's progressive, Marxist, whatever. But he says and does things that upset people in his camp. And I also like the fact that when I see him on Tucker Carlson's show, it gives me hope that we can actually get something done for common people. Because all this tribalist bullshit where, oh, I'm a progressive, so I'm not going to talk to Tucker Carlson. I don't like Tucker Carlson. I don't like him at all. But, him being on Tucker's show means that people that watch Tucker are going to Google, who is this Jimmy Dore guy? And maybe get an actual hearing of Medicare for all as common people, and that might affect actual votes. So that's why Jimmy Dore, I love him. And he's more important than Joe Rogan is, in my opinion, because Jimmy Dore will actually affect how people vote. So voting and policy, y'all, is what's life or death. A mean thing that somebody says on Twitter or a flag that somebody waves, whatever, is not going to get 28-year-olds to stop rationing their diabetes meds. A mandate is compulsory. That's what Matthew Hoyle has been saying that, and I wanted to give you your flowers. Yes, you're completely right, Matthew Hoyle. I think we all agree too. What are your thoughts? What is your opinion on today's television media, specifically network news? Dwayne, I couldn't tell you the last time I've watched network news. Well, I mean, something will come up on... I definitely don't watch CNN almost ever. Fox News. Tucker will have some provocative thing, and then I'll play it for a minute, and I'll just have to... He was talking about AOC yesterday. He did a monologue on AOC, and it was just so full of hate and misogyny that I couldn't take it. I just shut it off. I get it. She's pretentious, yada, 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 but the guy calls himself a Christian. The way he talks about that woman, just... I don't understand that stuff. I don't get it. Just disagree with her politically. Why would you spend 15 minutes just insulting her, saying all types of, insulting her intelligence, all these sexual innuendos about her, and why? You could be her father, for God's sake. I just, ugh. So no, I don't really watch a lot of network news. To be honest with you, I really stopped watching them, trusting them, whatever you want to say, after the Iraq war situation. That was it for me. I don't think I've never really recovered from that. Here's a question: is Ben Shapiro a hateful person? Why do people think yes or no? Well, he obviously hates Palestinians. But as far as everybody else, look, I think there's a difference between being a racist and being hateful. I think all of us are some sort of ist or hold to some harmful or damaging ism. I don't think any of us are pure as a driven snow, but I think there's a difference between actively hating someone and simply being a product of your environment. And so that's why I'm trying to hold the line and say, no, Justin Trudeau is not a dictator, because those words have specific meaning. I think hate has a specific meaning. You know, I was talking to Amy about this earlier. There's some groups, if you disagree with them, you're hateful just for disagreeing with them or whatever. So I think Ben Shapiro has no understanding of what people who are not him or do not have his privileges. He has no understanding whatsoever as to how life is for those people, and I don't think he has any interest in understanding it either. But, you know, he's thousands of miles away from me, so that's the most I could say about the homie. Adam and Eve's story comes from Egypt, Akhenaten, and Nefertiti. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't have a problem, by the way, with saying that Old Testament stories were borrowed or whatever from other cultures in the ancient Near East, because I believe in the collective memory of an original story. So I wouldn't have a problem saying that. The flood story, Epic of Gilgamesh, yada, yada, yada. But I think Nefertiti and Akhenaten being standing for Adam and Eve is a big stretch, and I don't see a lot of the parallels. Do you have any thoughts on the party protests in Canada? Yeah, my thoughts are that I am always going to be for common people over and against the government, and I think that Mr. Trudeau has taken some fascistic and horrible actions, and mostly driven by his ego, and that what he should have done is meet with those people. That's what I think he should have done. Where do you put yourself currently on the political spectrum? How has it changed? I don't know. I put myself as a confused person. I don't know where I land, and it's really interesting because I'm usually have a lot of clarity on, you know. All I can say is that I'm pro-life. So if it comes to the womb, war, or healthcare, I'm always going to default to the side of life. There's no party that scores 100 on all of those. But when I look at progressives, I'm closer. I feel more kinship with concern for common people than I do with the pro-life crowds that I used to run with. So I don't know. The other thing is, as an evangelical Christian, I was raised believing that capitalism was that there's no difference between the Bible and capitalism. And it's been the atheist, agnostic people in these forums that have challenged the hell out of me, made me read Marx, and forced me to say, okay, how does this capitalism align with what Jesus is saying? How does this libertarianism answer Cain's question, you know, am I my brother's keeper? The libertarians say no. And to some degree, the right-wingers say no. You know, it's personal responsibility, which I believe in personal responsibility. But the scripture says mercy triumphs over judgment. And so it seems to me that the right now, the progressives are closer to saying we should have personal responsibility, but overarching, we should have a society that's marked by mercy. So I don't know what that makes me. There's no way I could be a pure progressive because of my pro-life stance. But it seems to me that when it comes to war, progressives are more merciful than the Christian right. When it comes to the border, progressives are more merciful than the Christian right. When it comes to healthcare, progressives are more merciful than the Christian right. When it comes to the circumstances, the number one and number two circumstances that lead women to have abortions, progressives are more merciful than the Christian right, which is why you have less abortions during the Obama administration than the Bush administration. I'm pretty sure I just read something else where I don't know. I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance. I don't know if it's not having a home. I don't know if it's not having a particular political party. I don't know what I am. But I would like to see, definitely believe in personal responsibility. I mean, we're running 3 businesses simultaneously. My 16-year-old is standing up one of his own, like of his own. I mean, I obviously have to sign off on it because he's 16, but he went and start to finish, he did that on his own. So I believe in the free market. I believe in making your own money. You know, Sori and I right now are reading Atlas Shrugged together. So like, but I also believe that the higher and higher we go in the income, whatever, that the more and more we should pay out. That's our family. That's what I believe. Now, our community together, we do a lot of, you know, our community does a lot of charity. As a matter of fact, speaking of charity, if you guys feel so inclined, because not everybody agrees with us on the pro-life stuff, but I'm sure everybody agrees that we should help moms. So a girl actually I used to have these back and forth pro-choice, pro-life debates with, she hit me up a couple months ago and say, hey, check this out. And it was a picture of her sister's baby. And so she's got a baby registry. And so I asked her permission to, if I could post the baby registry, and she said yes. So I'm going to post that baby registry. And if you guys feel so inclined to check that out and help with that, that would make my day, because this young lady is awesome. And she didn't ask, by the way. She didn't say, hey, Vin, can you know, she didn't ask at all. She just did it because she wanted to show me. She said, hey, I know you'd appreciate this. But I'm not going to get into their story, but they could use the help. Let me say it that way. So I'll be posting the baby registry periodically. And even guys, even if you can't get like the entire thing, you can contribute $1, $2, whatever, to helping her. So yeah. Then it's also important to keep in mind there are other strains of conservatism. Eastern European Christian conservative created welfare states in Germany, Italy, and France. American conservatism is just cruel. Yeah, that's the other thing. You know, maybe if there was a American conservative party like what you just described, Perk, I would be able to gladly say I'm a conservative, but I don't want to stereotype conservatism or conservatives as all of them are cruel, but the Tucker Carlson conservatism in my mind is cruel as hell. It's unfeeling, and it is sub Old Testament in its mercy or lack thereof. So that's how I feel. Okay, Vin, I'm not angry. I'm not omniscient. You're also not omniscient. You believe in your God. I'm good with that. I have questions because Christianity does not make sense to me. Well, I think that's a very honest, balanced way of looking at things, for sure. And if, you know, look, if it doesn't make sense, I understand that. For sure. Can you put the link in the comment section? Yeah, I'll put Kelly's I'll put the link in the comment section. One of these days I'm going to figure out how to pin the link so that it'll always be there. Just because you believe someone has a right to welfare doesn't mean you have the right to force someone else to fund it. Yeah, Matthew Hoyle, I understand that, but we've had to fund wars collectively. You know, there's a scripture that says the law is for the lawless, and the idea is God has written the law in our hearts, and so there's no necessity for an external law. But because we pretend we don't know what that law in our heart is, God says, okay, fine, I'm going to have to put out an external law. Now you have to obey that law. And so Cain's question, am I my brother's keeper? The answer is, in your heart, I don't care if you're an atheist, agnostic, Muslim, Christian, Druze, pagan, the answer from most people is, yeah, at some level we're our brother's keeper. That's the law in the heart. If we're the type of society that says, hey man, you don't make enough money, so this preventable disease like diabetes, you're gonna have to start rationing your insulin. Fuck you, die. I would say, oh, okay. Well, now the law is for the lawless. So now we're gonna put a law where you have to help your brother. So, biblically speaking, there are multiple instances of forced charity. And I agree with you. If it's forced, it's no longer charity. But that's not the problem with the law. That's the problem with our own selfish human hearts. I believe it's unconscionable and a contradiction to say that you love your country, but that your countrymen can die of easily preventable diseases because I don't want to be taxed extra. That's where I'm at. I can't countenance that type of thing. Can't do it. I also find the idea that Odin and Thor would work for Jesus does seem nonsensical to me because in the most basic way, they're the antithesis of the teaching of Jesus. Well, I don't know if they're the antithesis of the teaching of Jesus. But when I say work for, maybe you should ask what I mean by work for. Secondly, the government is supposed to work for the people. And I think what Mr. Trudeau is doing is the antithesis of that. So you can work for somebody and still be hostile to your boss. So at that level, at least, I think you could understand what I mean. I mean, there are other levels of meaning when I say that. But at that level, at least, you could see that as logical. That, yeah, even though they're antithetical to Christ, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't work for him. It just means they hate their boss, which is what the Bible says. I would much rather give the same amount of money to good charities I choose versus a corrupt government and causes I don't believe in. I agree with that. That's a very good argument. And if I could look into I'm not talking about you, M. Death Man, but that's not what's happening. And the thing is, nobody's stopping charities for people like Alex Smith and diabetics and the rest of it, and they're still dying all over the place. So until we can get a baseline to where people are not dying for preventable diseases just because capital is the only differentiator, until people are not dying in this country and the only differentiator is capital, we can talk about charity later. But until then, the law is for the lawless. The world is cruel, life is cruel. Get with the program, people. It's a tough road that leads to death at the end, and all we can do is set things on a course so that those after us can prosper. Well, that's a partially nihilistic way of looking at things. And I would hope that if you or any of your loved ones were trapped in a burning building, that people around you wouldn't say, hey, it's a cruel world. Why is the Trinity a perfect system if one day the Son said to the Father he loves him so much he'd die for him? He's special because he went down and died on the cross. So how is he special beforehand? Well, I don't think that's what made him special. The scripture calls Jesus that God's monogenes, his one and only. So when you're looking at the Trinity, Jesus is God's perfect reflection of himself. You know, as Jonathan Edwards says, that Jesus is God's first thought, and since God's an eternal being, that's beginningless. So Jesus is God's perfect self-apprehension of himself. And so, because of that, he is unique. And it's from that uniqueness that Christ came down and died. So, he was already special from all eternity before the cross. Then I'm super curious. What is the rock instrumental you're playing right now? It's called Cirrus, and it's on SoundCloud. Cirrus. Are you equating the Norse gods to fallen angels? I don't know if we would call them fallen angels as much as we would call them B'nai Elohim, sons of God. These are principalities and powers that were given jurisdiction over the world in order to lead various peoples to God, but then took worship for themselves. I think angels are a different category of being than that. Why is it that the government that relies on the people's vote and tax dollars for their position and pay, but get to vote for their own pay raises without the people's input? Correct. Very good point. I refuse to recton any mythologies figures into Christianities. What do you think about this, Sadie? I don't know what recton is. You mean let me Google recton. You guys are over my pay grade. Over my pay grade. What is your opinion of LA Skid Row? The band? Or the area? I don't really have an opinion on them. Oh, retroactively rewrite. Well, I mean, look. There are obvious parallels between Baal and Odin, for example. And if Jesus had a choice to lead a life that did not result in dying on the cross, would that have happened? Well, he did have the choice in the sense that the option was presented to him. But again, because I'm a compatibilist, he would never have taken that choice. So this is what I'm speaking of when I talk about the B'nai Elohim. Because I've kind of beat around the bush about it. Now, I think Winter was pretty sure Winter was in the Bible Boogie when we talked about this actually. So it's Psalm 82, and here it is. Some people might be surprised, but it says, God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly, show partiality to the wicked, give justice to the weak and the fatherless, maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked? They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. And then God speaks to them again and says, I said you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. So here you have God rebuking other gods, saying you guys aren't doing your jobs. And God then looks at them and says, I've called you gods. I made you gods, but you're going to die like men. Because I'm going to judge you because you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And then at the end, Asaph says, Arise, O God, judge the earth, and you will inherit all the nations. Because God had handed the nations over to, in Deuteronomy, Genesis 11 at the Tower of Babel, he handed the nations over to these lesser divinities, and he kept Israel for himself. But then Asaph is saying, yeah, it's not good enough for you to inherit just Israel. You all the nations are going to be yours because you're going to liberate them from these gods who are occupying a place that they don't belong in. So when I say that that Odin and Thor work for Jesus, that's what I mean. They're not doing a very good job. But as the scripture says that God in Christ is reconciling the world to himself. And that eventually God will be all in all. And every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father, which includes Odin, Thor, Baal, and every other false divinity that does not channel worship to the Trinity. That's what I believe. Okay, Vince, so I could analogize Jesus as Krishna. When you factor in the Genesis line about being image bearer, Jesus would be the sinless with all the attributes, whereas we are all aspects within sin. With sin. Yeah, I think that could work. I think that could work. Have you visited any religious sites around the world, or do you have any future plans? I do plan to visit Rome. I also would love to go to Mecca during the Hajj. I would just love to be there and just see the Muslims. I mean, I wouldn't have access, obviously, but I do think it would be a moving experience to watch that happen. So, yes, those two. Yes. What is your opinion on left libertarianism, libertarian, anarcho-socialism, etc.? I do not have much understanding of that. It's compelling, but I don't understand much of it. I'm pretty sure Jesus would say MJ is the GOAT. No, because as I said earlier, God can't sin, and that would be a lie. That would be a lie. Luminous Night, this is just me hanging out and talking. This is just me hanging out and talking, bro. So, yeah. I was in the Sistine Chapel a week before COVID hit Italy. We were packed in like sardines. Yeah, that's one of the ones that I wanted to check out. Do you think that Jesus brought Eastern philosophy from India, China to the Middle East? No, I don't. Jesus was a Second Temple Jew, and he spoke and acted and taught like a Second Temple Jew. There's nothing in Jesus's teaching and theology that really deviated much from Second Temple Judaism. As a non-Christian, Rome and the Sistine Chapel specifically is awesome. Also, Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. What is your view on Yaldabaoth, the evil creator god of this world? Well, my view is that I'm not a Gnostic, so I don't believe that the creator of the world, the physical world, is evil. I believe the physical world and everything that comes with it is good. And I also believe the physical world and all that comes with it is going to last for all eternity. Obviously in different forms and ways that we can't imagine, but I believe that the world and creation is good. Very good, actually. When are you going to sell signature Vin guitar picks? Probably after we released our first song. And then you can decide whether or not you would take a set. I actually have Vin and Sori picks that a villager sent to us. But yeah. I love the Demiurge. All my homies love the Demiurge. For sure, for sure, for sure. As a Second Temple Jew, there was Phoenician influence, Assyrian influence, as well as the influence of Greek philosophy, especially in the intertestamental period, correct? Which is what you see with Paul, where Paul is able to quote Epicurean scholars and poetry and all the rest of it, for sure. Leviathan in the house. Been a while since I caught one of these. And it's earlier than usual. Quick top 10 metal bands you're into at the moment. Korn. Magua. Orbit Culture. Proto-Men. Is that the name of the band? Proto-Men? I think it's the name of the band. I say Iron Maiden because every time we have to do an Iron Maiden review, I get very happy. But I haven't. Those are the 4 bands I listen to on repeat constantly, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Oh, Jesus owes everything to Paul. Even Peter thought Paul, who never met Jesus, was nuts. See the incident in Antioch. I don't think it's rational to say that Jesus owes everything to Paul. Because Jesus was the foundation of all of Paul's theology. He was the centerpiece of all of Paul's theology. So I don't think that works. To be fair, a lot of the problems with Christianity and its representative values come from not Jesus' thoughts being displayed, but what the disciples said he did in their views. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you would consider to be problematic, but I mean, obviously, as a Christian, I don't believe that any of them are problematic. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I've got a book, When Paul Met Jesus. Really, really, really interesting book. What wars, Alec? Yeah, but what wars, Alec? The first 3 centuries of Christian history, we were getting slaughtered by the Romans. Okay, Alec, what caused the Crusades? Like what were the overarching factors? Are you saying that people just they were just chilling in church and they're like, you know what, let's just go and kill a bunch of Muslims? Oh, you're talking about the later medieval crusade. Okay. I believe Vince once said we know on the right team when Christians are being killed. It's true. It's true. When you're being persecuted and the powers that be are against you, then you're in good shape. When the church has not yet demonstrated that we know how to handle power properly, in my opinion. I think Perk probably has a different perspective on this. I'm a post-millennialist, so right now as it stands, considering the church's immaturity, I think the church in China is doing a much better job representing Christ than the church in America. And that's because the church in China is being persecuted like mad. I know this for a fact because I've held Chinese martyrs in my own arms. Where the church in America is doing a horrific job, and that's because of all the power that we have. And the mass majority of that power has come because of the whoring of the American church to the American government. And I use that phrase purposely because of the allusion to the woman that rides a beast in Revelation and the whore of Babylon in Revelation. Constantine never believed in Christianity. He used it as a political tool to gain control. Natural law. Constantine. When Constantine was coming up, Christianity was illegal. I don't even understand. Weird. Romans stole your African history to divide your soul. Okay, tell me about that. Tell me about the Romans. Tell me about the Romans who stole. Well, I have no allegiance to Constantine. I don't care about Constantine. But what does that have to do? The church in America has been corrupted by capitalism. Facts. Capitalism and political power. Hey, Vin, I have a personal controversy I'd like your take on. Okay, shoot for it. What are your thoughts on the Quran only being relevant in Arabic? You know, I don't really hear my Muslim friends saying that unless they're in an apologetic situation in which you quote the Quran, you know, like kill the unbelievers wherever you find them. If you quote the Quran or the Hadith or Sirah literature or some tafsir or whatever that does not say what they want it to say, then they'll fall back on, oh, the Quran is only, pertinent in Arabic. So it seems to me that kind of tool is only used in apologetic spaces. But if you were to go to your Muslim friend and say, hey, I want to know about the deen or the religion, do you know where I could find a Quran? They would hand you an English translation of the Quran and they would walk. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that seems to be more of a convenience issue than a there's the Mithra stuff. Perk, you can disassemble the Mithras stuff because I want to talk to Ian about his situation. Oh my goodness gracious. Isn't the 72 versions line not even in the Quran? Well, remember, Muslims don't handle the Quran, especially Sunni Muslims. They don't handle the Quran the way Protestants handle the Bible. So if you're a Protestant, all your religion has to be found in the Bible. Islamic theology is not like that. You have the Quran, and then you have the Ahadith, the sayings of the Prophet. And then within the Ahadith, there's an extremely complex structure as to which sayings they agree with and which they don't. So you don't necessarily, like, for example, the 5 daily prayers and when you're supposed to do them and all the rest of them, that's not found in the Quran. So you don't need only the Quran to get to, their ideas. Where'd Ian go? Ian had a personal controversy, which was very fascinating to me. So I want to hear what he says about his personal controversy. Oh, he hasn't typed it out yet. Is there anything to even address? People who say the Mithras stuff don't even know anything about Mithras and will also confuse Mithras with Mithra and Sol Invictus, among other issues. I'm not okay, I'm kind of don't bring that stuff up. Please. I was taking a class where a white student said the N-word when asked by another student what NWA stands for. The professor got really upset and sent out emails to the school and the students. I'm waiting for the part 2. Nobody in the class was black, and I'm pretty sure the white student who said it was either Eastern European or Scandinavian. I know it doesn't have venom to you personally. What are your thoughts? Hey, here's my problem, okay? Joe Biden stands up and says that we are predators. He called us predators before Hillary called us predators. The crime bill, which completely destroyed the black community in the 90s, completely ruined my community. It was authored and really, really pushed by Joe Biden. It's the Joe Biden crime reform bill or something or whatever. Just completely destroyed my folks. Joe Rogan is a part-time UFC commentator. Was on the show Fear Factor, where he was having people eat testicles, like a dare show. Now he's got a podcast where he smokes weed and talks about machine elms on his DMT trips. He says the N-word over 12 years, whatever. Makes racist jokes, whatever. The same people who voted for Joe Biden, the guy that did actual material harm to my folks, and were telling me that I needed to vote for Joe Biden, who did actual material harm to my folks. Those same people are saying that Joe Rogan should be canceled because he said the N-word. Dear listener, NWA stands for Niggas with Attitude. White people did not invent the group's name. They also had a group called BWA, which is Bitches with Attitude. That's the terminology. That's what the group stands for. That's what NWA stands for. I don't know what to tell you. Look, I don't know how many people were in SoFi Stadium at the Super Bowl, dear listener, but the Still DRE song came on. Everybody's sea walking, everybody's gang signing, and the song starts off with, "It's still Dre Day, nigga, AK nigga." Now, Snoop comes in and says, "Ah," so like he doesn't say it, but all the Gen Xers, red, white, black, orange, purple, all of them were singing along. "It's still Dre Day, nigga, AK." It is what it is. We've got to move beyond the symbolism, guys. I am not saying that it is wise for you to start a new YouTube channel and say what I just said. That's not wise. Okay? But when we talk about racism, if the person is saying, "Die, nigger," as they're lynching a person, which was what filled that word with so much venom, what's the difference between a white guy in the 1800s saying, get your niggers in line, right? And Hillary Clinton calling us super predators as she goes to justify a crime bill that's going to decimate and destroy and enslave, re-enslave, check the 13th Amendment. It's literally slavery. What is the difference? I think some of the, I'm not a complete Marxist, obviously, but the dialectical, what the fuck is happening in the real world, understanding that Marx has is something that really resonates with me. What is happening in the real world? When Hillary uses the term super predator, or when Tucker uses the term thug in relation to Black Lives Matter protesters, it is the same thing as the dreaded N-word. It's the same thing. Everybody knows what's underneath that term. Everybody knows when all them folks are saying thug this, thug that to BLM protesters, we know what the spirit was behind it. We know what the intention was. You know, Tucker yesterday, he was going crazy over that poor lady that got, trampled because of the Gestapo pretending cops over there in Canada. But he had no compassion or outrage whatsoever for a lot of the innocent nonviolent protesters who were getting the crap kicked out of them. Now those people were thugs. Yeah, I don't know if you read what's it, the Steinbeck classic, Grapes of Wrath. And, you know, you had these Hoovervilles because these people were struggling in the Great Depression. And it was basically these, like, refugee places. The government would give you something. And then you had people that were not completely affected. You used to call them Hoovies or something like that. Which basically was, you're beneath me, I'm above you. Right? So, this has gotten to the point of complete madness. Do I want white people walking around feeling comfortable saying that word? No. But is that going to stop every show? No. If a white person goes to a Dr. Dre concert or a 50 Cent concert, we know, let me let you in on a little secret. Rappers know that the people who buy their records the most are white suburban kids. We know that. So, again, as I've said before, it's about your intention. It's about your context. It's about your track record. It's about what in the real world, how you're going to affect my folks. And the fact of the matter is, a person who is very conversant with NWA is much less likely to vote for a guy like Biden, to support something like the crime bill, and is more likely to sympathize with a group like BLM because NWA also has fuck the police and all the rest of it. I got pulled over one time. And I looked at, it was just, I should tell the story. Father of the Year. I got pulled over. I'm looking at my daughter. And I was like, should I do it? She's like, do that shit, Dad. So like, I play fuck the police. Well, the cops is coming up, whatever. Cops are scared of me over here, though. They don't want to keep going to court. Okay. That's all I got for that answer. That's the best that I can do. That's the best that I can do. What's going on, my brother? Brother from another mother and his beautiful wife. Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, Hoover Towns, whatever. Yeah. Also, I'm white, so I wanted to hear a different perspective. I should really send you in story an intro video of myself. Yeah, Ian, we check it out for sure. Did my super chat send? Let me check, Natural. Check out my buddy, Natural. Oh! Let me see. Trudeau is on the trustee list of the WEF, so Canadians' best interest is not his concern. That's for sure. God has been driven from the country and replaced with money, and money. What is the WEF, Natural? What's the WEF? Something fund? World something fund? Joshua says, have you ever read the Westminster Confession of Faith or the Heidelberg Catechism? Yes and yes. I was about to catechize my kids with the Westminster Confession of Faith, actually, and then I decided against it. The World Economic Forum. Oh, okay. And then, yeah, Matthew is a 1689 guy. Yo, Vin, can you see me? Yes, I can see you. Well, I can see your icon. Revelation to John, critique of Rome or unfulfilled prophecy. I would say it is a critique of Jerusalem and the religio-socioeconomic structure of the confluence between the Jerusalem's elite and Rome, and contains a promise that Rome also will be destroyed, but the main focus is on the destruction of Jerusalem. political troll. The real point is that there were pagan festivals that were overlaid with Christian meanings and names on the same date to keep people in their cultural grooves. Thoughts on how Muslims view Jesus and their version of his death. I've often said that I would be a Muslim if it wasn't for a few things. Now, I had a friend a couple years ago when I started the channel saying, how could you, considering the whole situation with Aisha? But I was like, well, I mean, that's a cultural thing. That was something that was going on in his culture. But over the years, the Aisha thing has really, really, really been a problem for me. So that's one. But two, the second major problem I have is that I really can't get over, intellectually speaking, is Surah 4:157, where it says, I think it says the Jews say they killed the Christ, but they didn't. It only appeared to them as such, and everyone who says otherwise is in doubt or whatever. So, as a Muslim, you're forced to deny that Jesus was crucified, which even the historical Jesus people, John Dominic Cross and all those guys, I mean, it's universal. I mean, aside from, people, flat earthers and people who say Jesus never existed, if you believe Jesus existed and you have any sort of credentials about you, you believe Jesus was crucified. This is just outside of Christianity. So here's Surah 4:157. As a Muslim, you're stuck. What people don't know is that there is not a universal understanding among Muslims about what happened. There are various weird stories that positions that they're forced to take. One is that in the upper room, Jesus says, I'll tell that story last. So one is that Judas, the betrayer, is on the way to Gethsemane, and that Allah changes Judas's appearance to look like Jesus. And then the Romans start jamming him up. And Judas goes, what are you guys doing? It's not me, it's Judas. And they're like, yeah, right, that's what you would say. And then they crucify Judas instead of Jesus. Because remember, the text in the Quran says it only appeared as such. So that's one story. Another story is by this guy named Ahmed Deedat. Ahmed Deedat was, in the 80s, the greatest singular Islamic apologist in the world. I think he's the one that popularized the... show me one passage where Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, said, I am God, worship me. It's my best Ahmed Deedat impression. Ahmed Deedat wrote this book called Crucifixion. And in that book, he goes with the swoon theory. Ahmed Deedat's argument is you're not really crucified unless you die by crucifixion. So the swoon theory is that Jesus passed out, blood loss, shock, whatever. And then he woke up 3 days later, somehow got this stone that was an incline, rolled it away with pierced hands and feet, overcame the Roman soldiers, maybe snuck past them. And then in all this blood and guts, somehow convinced his followers that he had conquered death. And they just were confused. They thought he rose from the dead, but he hadn't really died. That's a swoon theory. So that's how Ahmed Deedat, that's story number 2. That's how Ahmed Deedat gets away, tries to harmonize the Quran with history. The advantage of that is obviously that the historian, you could still work with the historians and say, yeah, they put him on a cross, yada, yada, yada. The back end of that is obviously just logic and medicine. He was already going into hypovolemic shock before he was even nailed to the cross, as demonstrated by the fact that he couldn't finish the way to the Via Dolorosa. He needed Simon the Cyrene to carry the cross for him because he was already suffering from hypovolemic shock and he was already dead. The pericardium was pierced That's the blood in the water when the soldier pierced his side. He was dead. But that's number 2, is the swoon theory. The third one is Jesus is in the upper room and he's panicking. The Romans are about to surround the house. And Jesus says, "Who volunteers to take on my complexion, my appearance, and I will be his companion in Jannah." Basically, it means you're going to get a guaranteed trip to heaven. And John says, "I'll do it." Well, John is the youngest. So Jesus asks the question again. Nobody does it. John does it. Jesus asks the question the third time. Nobody does it. John does it. Jesus says, "Okay, it'll be granted to you." Allah changes John's appearance to look like Jesus. I swear to God, this is what they say. Hole opens in the sky. Jesus gets lifted to heaven. Romans show up, crucify John. Voila. This is the best that the Muslims can come up with. Now, shout out to my Muslim friends, but I could never be a Muslim. That's what they say. And I just think that's... Anyway, that's what the Muslims say about Jesus' death. And obviously, I don't believe it. Obviously. Because the Romans can't tell the difference between someone who's dead and a passed out. I mean, again, that's why they broke the feet of the other 2 thieves. Pilate was surprised that Jesus was dead, and that's why the soldier pierced his side through the rib and through his heart, the pericardium. And John mentions that blood and water came out, but that's the sac around the heart and all that jazz. Michelle in the house. Have you seen Monty Python's Life of Brian? No, I have not, but I heard it's famous. Would Doctor Who be an allegory for Jesus? Probably, but I don't know much about Doctor Who. But I heard Life of Brian was a pretty famous, like classic kind of work type of thing. What is your take on Mary being a co-redemptrix with Christ in the Catholic Church? I'm a fan of the Blessed Mother, to be honest with you. I've got a little Mary pendant here. This is actually the Blessed Mother. I love the Blessed Mother. I've got a famous Catholic friend, and every time he talks about me, he goes, "I've got this Protestant friend who has a devotion to the Blessed Mother." I didn't say I had a devotion to her, homie. I just said, anyway. But the co-redemptrix stuff is very, very close to blasphemy to me. Now, I understand she played a very significant role in redemptive history in the timeline of Christ. But it's as close as you can come to blasphemy for me. Perkinos might have a different understanding. And no, I don't believe that Mary is an intercessor for me, because Jesus is at the right hand of the Father. I mean, he's my intercessor. I go directly. I don't understand. Why would I go to Mary? I don't understand it. Michael Ray here. You believe literal magic is real. Why is it hard to believe that a man could magically change the appearance of another man? Well, Michael, so do you. You believe, Michael, if you're a materialist, you believe that consciousness can get booted up from unconscious matter, and you believe that life can appear from non-living matter. So there's not much difference in the history of human beings between magic and inexplicable phenomena. Number two, I don't have a problem believing that God could change the appearance of anyone. Hell, we can change people's appearance via plastic surgery. I just got done listening to some Jacques Vallée. If you wanna hear some really freaky stuff, listen to a couple hours of Jacques Vallée. That's not the issue. The issue that I have is that it is completely contradictory to religious or secular history and medicine. That's the problem. You're going to say that Jesus was never crucified when every single historian who believed Jesus existed, that's credentialed, that specializes in the topic, believes that he was crucified. You have a significant problem. Of course, conveniently as a Christian, I don't have that problem. So, that's the issue. The reason the changing of appearance stories are significant is because whether you're a Christian or not, you have to concede that in the post-Christ age, or outside of the first century common era, whatever you want to call it, the crucifixion of Christ or the story of Christ is a top 5 moment in religious history. And for them, and especially the fact, pretty sure Jesus is mentioned more in the Quran than even Muhammad, peace be upon him. So for them to have these 3 disparate versions of what happened on such a seminal moment indicates that Muhammad was probably more influenced by Docetists than by any real knowledge of the facts, and then Muslims after him had to clean up the mess. That's what that indicates. So that's the problem, Mikey. Do you think some pagan deities could be fallen angels vying for the worship of man? Yes, but I do not believe that the B'nai Elohim are angels. I think that they are another group of created beings that could rightly be called gods with a lowercase g. And that from time to time, God has to punish them. And he explicitly says, I'm going to punish the gods of Egypt, for example. So I think it would be a lot more accurate to call them gods, lowercase g, because God calls them gods. Vin, what's the best atheist explanation for conscious life? Well, I don't think there's a universal explanation for conscious life, and I don't think that necessarily you could have a problem. Look, the only people I believe have a serious problem with consciousness in life would be materialist physicalists. So if you start from a materialist physicalist standpoint, you're gonna look silly trying to boot up consciousness from matter. It's impossible. They call it the hard problem of consciousness. That's just a placeholder so that they can push the logical impossibility to the next generation. Like, oh, it's a problem. The implication is we can solve it. It's like the hard problem of the squared circle. It will never be solved because it's logically impossible. But if you get away from physicalism and you go to hard idealism like Bernardo Castro, or you go to conscious agents theory like Don Hoffman, you don't necessarily need a god in those philosophical constructs. You do need, and you can solve the hard problem of consciousness from those perspectives. So you can be an atheist idealist or an atheist conscious agents theorist, and then you won't have a problem. But Mikey, to my knowledge, is neither one of those. Mikey is still a materialist in my understanding. So he still has those problems. There's Mikey. Hasn't changed. God created other gods to blame all the bad shit on. No, he blames the bad shit on people who do bad shit. So if the gods are doing bad shit, then he blames them. If we're doing bad shit, he blames us. It's both. It's both and. It's both and. Here, let me show you. Let me show you how it's both and, Mikey, my brother from another mother. I would call you sister from another mister, but you're gonna get mad at me if I say that. Here's Isaiah 24. Look at this. On that day, Yahweh will punish the host of heaven in heaven, and the kings of the earth on the earth. On that day, the Lord will punish the host of the heaven in heaven, and the kings of the earth in earth. So the host of heaven in heaven would be the gods, lowercase g, and the kings on the earth are people on the earth. So everybody that does bad shit gets punished. So it's not just the gods. Do I believe that the gods, some are against God, but I also believe some are heroic. For instance, Set fought for world, Serpent, and Marduk fought Tiamat. Interesting. Can I put it in an application to be a god? Well, a lowercase g god? Well, it says that Christ cast out the principalities and the powers. And so there's some empty seats. So there's things like that. I'm slightly biased, but I think I would make a good god. Well, the way to test that is to image the true God correctly on earth, and then we'll see, inshallah. The historical backstories are based in fact, but the Quran and the Bible and every other religion ever created by a human being is bullshit to keep populations in line. Well, Scott, that doesn't work for the first century, right? Because the ruling class at the time were the Romans, and the Christians were walking around saying that Jesus was the ruler of the kings of the earth, including that Jesus was the true emperor. They wouldn't burn incense to Caesar. And they didn't believe in any of their gods, so much so that the Romans called them atheists and set them on fire in Nero's garden. So this theory, I mean, what you said is obviously false, because that would mean that you have a intimate understanding of every religion in the world, and I don't think that you do. But even if we just stopped on Christianity, that wouldn't work. And actually, I'm not a Muslim, but the same thing goes for the Quran. The religion, look, Muhammad could have easily accomplished ordering a society without going as far as he did in the Quran. I just don't think that theory works. No, avoid her. To be honest with you, I have no expertise in that situation. I wish Sarai was here, because that would help. We will have to do a live sometime soon. Sure, man. Sure. How's married life treating you? I love the religion was created for control stuff. Completely flies in the face of current anthropology, but it's so easy to understand, so people run with it. Yeah. I know. It's weird. Very weird. Your thoughts on this verse from the Qurans that tell the husbands to physically hit? Yeah, it means to strike your wife. And it makes sense to me when I think about human nature. And of course, I was talking to a Muslim guy. He's like, yeah, but before it says hit him, it says banish them to beds apart, right? Which it does. There's a hadith where the Muslim women come up to Muhammad and say, this guy is beating us. These guys are beating us and they're being too harsh with us. Look at these bruises. So Muhammad makes a proclamation to the men, do not beat Allah's, don't beat Allah's servants, or, his daughters. His servants, his slaves, whatever, in the feminine. So the guys stop hitting their wives. Well, the guys then come to Muhammad and they say, Ya Rasulullah, you told us to stop hitting these girls, and now they're talking back to us, they're becoming disobedient. So then Muhammad's response was, a man shall never be questioned about his wife. So a lot of people are saying, you know, some of the Islamic apologists are like, this is where the whole Arabic, you got to learn the Arabic. They're like, oh, it's just a shove. It's like, no, this is so bad that they complained to Muhammad. Muhammad told them to stop, but then the women got out of line, and so whatever. Here's one thing I do want to say, though. And this is observation. This is not a command. Christian men are told to love their wives as Christ loves the church. But I have seen a lot of abuse in Christian churches. And that wouldn't be so bad if the leadership would stand up and hold these people accountable to abusing their wives. But quite frankly, it seems to me that Muhammad's final sort of surrender to the guys in his group, which will be a man shall not be questioned about how he treats his wife, is also the philosophy of many in Christian leadership. So while the Bible is clear, love your wife as Christ loved the church, etc., etc., I'm not going to let the current American Christian church off the hook in the way that it treats women currently in the church. So there's that. And I know I'm being a terrible Christian here, but I'm trying to be as forthright as I possibly can about the issue. All right, guys, 5 minutes. Who had a massive heart attack? Hey, big homie Dan is here. Hey, Dan, I mentioned you. I don't think I mentioned you by name, but I did mention you a couple 10, 15 minutes ago. Your brother had a massive heart attack on Thursday. What the hell? How old is he? Um, 43. That is way too young. Definitely. You know what? No, I'm just gonna do it now. God, please help Dan's brother. He's 43 years old and he just had a massive heart attack. God, I pray that you would give his doctors wisdom and that you would give peace to his family. And thank you so much, God, for bringing Dan to ask for prayer for him. And God, I pray that you would anybody else who's a praying person, God, that you would move them to pray for Dan's brother, and that the next time we see Dan, that he has a good report for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Jeez, Dan, I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. Keep me updated, bro, for real. I'm serious. Keep me updated on that. 43 years. I'm hearing a lot of young people having major heart attacks recently. It's kind of weird. I just saw another one on Facebook like a week ago. It's weird. What would you say to someone who has once considered themselves an atheist but is reconsidering their entire views on everything? I would say, first of all, you got to tell that person that is the bravest thing in the world to do. The older I get, the more science I look at, the more I realize how terrifying it is to question all of your foundational beliefs or non-beliefs. So the first thing I'd do is I'd tell your friend, that's a pretty brave thing to do. The second thing I would do, obviously I'm a Christian, is I would get a Bible and I would read the Gospel of John. And I would hope to have a Christian friend to kind of bounce ideas off of. Obviously, Christianity is not the only choice. theism isn't the only choice, whatever. But I do think, philosophically speaking, that there's a lot of philosophy of life that you can get from familiarizing yourself with one of the foundational documents in the Western world, as Jordan Peterson would say. Five minutes, guys. 5 minutes. Would you spend the night alone in the basement of an abandoned insane asylum? I would, because I don't believe in ghosts. I have this argument with my girlfriend occasionally. It depends. If you were there, I'd probably do it. Because some spiritual thing would probably happen, and I'd catch you. I'd say, aha! What now, bitch? And then you'd have to convert to Christianity. It'd be glorious. Oh, my gosh. We are going to talk when you're done with this, just so you know. I have no autonomy of my own. Mikey has spoken. Okay, Mikey, we'll talk after this, inshallah. I have 5 minutes left anyway. I will never hurt your sister, Vin. I won't risk you or Sori's or her parents' wrath by hurting yours. Which sister? Which sister are you talking about, Michelle? Do you believe Jesus is the only way to salvation? Yes. Yes. He's the only one that died for our sins and rose again. Imagine staying in a asylum and coming out saved. Oh, this is Michelle's husband. Okay, hey, man, good to see you. I never talked to you. I'm glad you're here. That's cool, bro. I'm glad you won't hurt my sister. You better not. Vin, do we all reincarnate, and how does the way we live now influence the circumstance we reincarnate in? No. We all resurrect, but we don't all reincarnate. The type of dimension that you end up in when you resurrect is contingent solely on what you do with the Trinity. If you trust that Jesus lived and died and lived again for your sins, then you're going to wake up in the dimension dominated by him. If you disavow that and go live your own way, then you'll live in a dimension where the Trinity does not manifest their presence. So those are the two options. Oh boy, here we go. I see how it is. I've been trying to gain an audience with Father Vin for a month or now, but Mikey throws out demands and it happens. Father Vin. Who's Father Vin? Do you have any planned upcoming streams? No, I do not. Back to my homework. My grade slipped down to a B+ and I must maintain an A. Peace out. Take care. Sending love to Story. Let me know when the semester's over and you get that A so we can reward you somehow, some way. You should be rewarded, Lisa. Any suggestions or channels with interreligion content that would help me understand the Bible a little bit more? Yeah, there's a channel Inspiring Philosophy is a really, really interesting channel. Let me try to put the link here. Guys are really cool. Interreligion, a lot of science stuff. Those guys are legit. There you go. Inspiring Philosophy. Check him out. Check him out. Night. Oh hell, my wife just threw a pillow at my head for not letting her know you were online. Jordan, this is a channel to explain the Bible. You just got to wait till I'm on to explain it to you. Do not listen to him, Jordan. Do not listen to John B. Night, everyone. Later, Blair. Good stream, guys. Really, really good stream. I think I said 5 minutes an hour ago. All right, guys. I think your brother's about to land the aeroplane. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I didn't think everybody was gonna chill because it was usually pretty early for a hangout, but we did 2.5 hours, inshallah. So there you go. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. Much love to Perkinos. Much love to the big homie Dan and everybody else. I'm out of here, guys. Take care of each other. Love your neighbor. All that good jazz. Vin out.